Done.
Done. Could get that out. It's in my secret pocket here. Usually I try to clean this out.
It doesn't have enough caffeine in it.
I play pickleball every morning for a couple hours, so yeah,
Oh, it's fantastic.
it's a good time.
Do you play locally?
I play in Prior Lake a lot.
Great.
'cause there's
Everything turned out really well.
Just about it. I never played it. I have some time.
Yes, it'll be Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll start the meeting. Please note that everyone is here except for Dan and Matt. And we'll start by saying Pledge Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our first item on the agenda tonight is Spotlight on Success. It is the Special Services Department update.
Good evening, everyone. I will get started here. Thank you for having me here tonight to present an update on special services and the summer programming that we have going on right now. So it seems hard to believe, but this is the second to the last week already of our summer programming. So we will get started. So this slide defines the difference of each program that we have during the summer. So some of you might remember something similar last year. We have our extended school year programs, which is individualized intervention for students who are on IEPs that meet specific criteria for summer programming in order for them to maintain skills throughout the summer and that break in instruction. We have the summer learning labs, which is primarily K through 8, and that's a targeted instruction that really focuses on math, reading, writing, and social emotional development. And then lastly, we have high school credit recovery, which is an opportunity for students to retake required course credits throughout the summer so that they can receive that credit towards graduation. This is the schedule of our programs. The high school credit recovery goes until 1 p.m., but the other programs end at 11:30. And these are the weeks that we run the program. So like I said, this is our second to the last week of the program, and then our last week is the week of July 8th. We always take a break over that 4th of July week. We had programs in most of our buildings here, as you can see. So we had preschool programming here for ESY. We also had our transition program. That's the 18 to 22-year-olds that come in for services. Ravenstream had our Ravenstream and Falcon Ridge Summer Learning Labs students, and then all of our elementary ESY students. Eagle View, we had summer learning labs out there. Middle school, we had summer learning labs and ESY, and then high school had our high school credit recovery and ESY. This is our current enrollment for those programs. We did see a slight drop in some of the enrollment with limited transportation this summer. So I know that's something that we've talked about, is just looking at different ways to help recruit and provide some transportation in the next summer. However, our high school numbers were almost exactly the same, with one student off from last summer. And our ESY numbers went up this summer.
Can I ask a question quick?
Of course.
The 142 under high school credit recovery, what grade levels are those?
Yeah, so high school credit recovery, that number is all the kids that are eligible to come in to receive credits. So that would be grades 9 through 12.
Okay,
Yep,
thanks.
absolutely. So our total students served is 342. And then the credits up until this date that have already been recovered is 140, which is great. You can break it down in each core content area, and then the electives are at the bottom there. And then at the bottom, the early childhood Help Me Grow referrals. Those are any referral in the summer that's a child under the year, 3 years of age, that if there's some concern with development, that we continue to screen and assess for those young children during the summer months. So any questions about our enrollment or students? Okay. This is our staffing that we have. So you can see just the different teachers that we have for each program, as well as paraprofessionals. And then we did do the specialists again this summer. I just want to point out some of the specialists and social worker positions that we hired was still with those COVID relief funds, which this is the last summer that we have the ability to tap into those funds. We also had a counselor up at the high school as well that helped. And then those teachers up at the high school, we rotate the different content areas. So like 1 week we might have a focus that's math. 1 week we have a focus that's language arts. So I just want to point out that we don't have 6 teachers that entire 5 weeks of instruction, they rotate. And then just a couple snapshots of some of the things that we did this summer. We did have law enforcement come out and talked about, with the Eagle View Summer Learning Labs, the 4 pillars of State Patrol. And I had a couple notes here from that experience. I just wanted to make sure I had it accurately defined for what the activity was. So the state trooper visited the classes to discuss seatbelt usage, speeding, and crash reconstruction. Trooper Spencer Stockwell taught about the 4 pillars of State Patrol and shared about speeders and speeds that are identified, and walked through different types of crash reconstruction. And overall, the students were engaged and learned about many aspects of the science that they use within how to identify and detect speed patrol. So that was a pretty cool experience for those classes. This is just a little snapshot of 4th graders creating summer reading goals and discovering common themes in literature. This was at Ravenstream. Ravenstream elementary students built bridges for science. So they mapped out 7 different kinds of bridges on paper, and then they were able to create one out of marshmallows and toothpicks. These are some snapshots of preschool students here at the CEC that were learning through water play and ocean themes. Middle school students packed up mana bags at Holy Trinity. Those are bags for folks that need help, that might need food or different types of provisions. It's anything that's not, that won't go bad. So like water, toothbrush, like they have granola bars and stuff on here, things like that they'll put in there. Also, the middle school, I wanted to point out on June 13th, they walked over to the Center of Hope, and the Duck Cup Memorial hosted a wellness retreat for the middle school students. And they were able to do a 2-hour event that engaged in educational lectures discussing healthy boundaries, as well as were taught about physical and emotional techniques by inner balance energy through various movements to help support healthy mental health. And once again, that Duck Cup Memorial has helped partnered with providing some healthy opportunities for our middle school students this summer. Here's a little snapshot of some elementary students engaging in arts and crafts and math games. And these are our high school students working in our school garden. They're picking some strawberries. And they made some strawberry oatmeal bars from the strawberries in the garden. We should have invited you. I mean,
Too bad.
I know. Here's some 2nd graders at Ravenstream presenting their watch, think, and color activities for math. And then today, our high school students went to the Lawrence's Berry Farm, which was a great opportunity to get out into the community and then bring back, and then they made some smoothies today. So, yeah. So just some fun enrichment activities that we're able to provide our students this summer. So any questions at all? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Awesome.
All right, open forum would be next. We do not have anyone for that, so I will ask for the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The consent agenda. We don't have to go through that, do we? Just a motion to approve.
That's correct.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the board committee reports. Danny, the Southwest Metro Intermediate District?
Yes, I am very happy to say that last Tuesday, we had our meeting of the Southwest Metro School Board, and the main purpose of that board meeting was to select our new superintendent for Southwest Metro. And the person that was selected is Jeff Horton, and he comes to us from Gaylord's Fairfax Winthrop School District. He comes with a lot of experience, and I believe he'll do a wonderful job at being the head of the Southwest Metro Intermediate School District. Andy was our guest superintendent, and if you'd like to chime in, Andy, with anything about the selection process from your standpoint?
Yeah, not only was I able to be a part of the meeting on Tuesday night as the superintendent, but I also took part in interviews throughout the day. I think we had very good candidates to choose from. And so the final two, we were a part of. The superintendents who make up Southwest Metro were there on Tuesday throughout the day, and then I was there in the evening. And I think strong candidates, and the board made a wise decision with Dr. Horton. So excited to work with him.
Thank you, Andy.
Wasn't Jeff Horton was one of the ones that we interviewed? for
Correct.
Randy's
He
job?
was
Okay.
one of the persons that we interviewed after we made the initial review of the resumes. And he did a nice job of interviewing, but he did not make the final two cut.
Good. I'm glad he got someplace.
All right. Danny, are you the special
Yes, I'm
education parent
CPAC, and we
advisory?
did not have a CPAC
Okay.
meeting since the last board meeting.
Okay. Community education,
That's mine, and we had no meeting.
Early Child Community Coalition,
No meeting.
Joint Powers Committee? That's Dan, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Equity Committee, I don't have anything, but I know some of you guys went to the Equity Summit.
Yes, the Equity Summit was held last Tuesday on the 18th, and it was a very well put together group of breakout sessions. It had a couple of very nice breakouts or keynote speakers that started out the day, gave us some things to think about and to discuss and to mull over. And then we had a choice of a number of breakout sessions that the participants could enjoy learning more about topics that interested them. And it was a very, very good equity get-together. I come back from that saying to myself, you know, isn't it wonderful that we're on the path of not being judgmental, you know, that we are trying to be as accepting as we can be of people with unique needs. And if there's anything that you can get from a meeting like we just attended at the summit, that to me is a key. You know, we're all here in this boat together, and we have to be accepting of everybody, no matter what their issues or what their backgrounds are.
I was there too. I was really happy to see that there's so many people from New Prague there. That would make me very happy about that.
Anybody else? No? Okay. District Advisory Committee, I don't think there was anything.
Yes, I can
Was there?
speak for Board Member Calder. It hasn't been a joint powers meeting, so there's nothing to report since the last time we were together. And I don't believe there has been a District Advisory Council meeting either since our last time together. So nothing to report on either.
Okay, thank you. New Prague Area Education Foundation? Nothing? All right.
I
think-
could say, if I don't mind, and I'll look at Mr. Boothie, a little plug for the summer social. That is going to be Thursday, August 15th. Thursday, August 15th. It's going to be at the Bros this year. There's information that is coming out, and that's a couple months away, but summer gets busy, and as a lot of the work of the Education Foundation now gets into be planning for that summer social. So if people are interested, information is online, and again, the evening of Thursday, August 15th.
Is that a week before the first days?
I'm amazed that I remembered Thursday, August 15th. Thursday,
it is.
August
I think it
15th
is.
is a week before.
It's a week before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not having it on the teacher workshop because it was so busy, right? Yeah, okay, that's
The
what I
week
heard.
before that, right?
Some people said they were too busy that day anyway, so, good, okay. With that, Andy, we're on to the superintendent report.
Yeah, thank you. I want to recognize Samantha, who's here in Janelle's absence. Janelle's enjoying a well-deserved vacation with her family. Lots of kind of end-of-the-year things and lots of celebrations. I do want to recognize the significant achievement of our girls softball team, who just came up a little bit short a couple Fridays ago in Mankato, but what a run for those student athletes, their families, their coaches. Second place in the highest class for 4A. And our very own Jordan Marsh was a finalist for Miss Softball. I think it was recognized yesterday. I think the award went to someone else very well deserving. But a great season for our girls softball team. And as I said to you last month, Mr. Skogerbo will be here, I believe, next in July to kind of do an end of the year wrap, and you'll be asked to weigh in on the Minnesota State High School League renewal. But just this spring in 11 sports alone, there was almost 500 student athletes competing, which I think says a lot about the work that our athletic department does, the coaches, the boosters, all the different experiences. And it's great when you can get second in state, but it's also the experiences that our students who are on the 9A and B and the junior varsity and all of those different things. And so a really, really good end to the year, great end to the year for what was a successful sports season for us, and more to come on that next week.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to the first reading of policies.
That's me. We have 8 first reads this month. The first one is 413, harassment and violence. The purpose of this policy is to maintain a learning and working environment free from harassment and violence on the basis of protected class. This policy is up for review every year and is mandatory. Note that there is proposed added language to Roman numeral 2, letter D, and revised language to Roman numeral 3, letter D, number 6. Questions or clarifications, anybody? Kim?
No.
Mark?
No.
Jean?
No.
Denny?
No, thank you.
You're so nice. The next one is 413F. It's the harassment and violence form. This is the form that someone would use to fill out a harassment complaint. There are no proposed changes to this MSB form at all. Questions or clarifications? Denny?
None.
Jean?
No.
Mark?
No.
Kim?
No.
434, staff technology use. The purpose of this policy is to set forth policies and guidelines for access to the school district computer system and acceptable use of the internet. Note that this is our own New Prague Area Schools policy, which is subject to annual review. No changes are being proposed at this time. Questions or clarifications on 434? Kim?
No.
Mark?
No.
Jean?
No.
Denny?
I know, but it's a good policy to have on the books, that's for sure.
For sure. 475, professional conference travel. Purpose of this policy is to establish controls for travel by school personnel, board members, and staff as required by law. This is our own New Prague Area Schools policy. No changes are proposed at this time. Questions or clarifications? Denny?
None.
Jean?
No.
Mark?
No.
Kim?
No.
475F is the professional conference travel form. New Prague Area School policy. Since employees now register for conferences through Frontline, they don't use this form anymore, so it's being removed from our policy list. Questions or clarifications? Kim?
No.
Mark?
No.
Jean?
No.
Denny?
No.
722, public data requests. The school district recognizes its responsibility relative to the collection, maintenance, and dissemination of public data as provided in state statutes. This policy is mandatory and is reviewed annually. There are some minor language changes. Questions or clarification? Denny?
None.
Jean?
No.
Mark?
Yeah, has there been a time when we can, if people request what we would consider to be too much information, have we ever charged somebody for asking for information that was exorbitant? Or they asked repetitively for the same thing?
I think
can't-
I think we've charged if we've had to print it. Am I right?
Yeah, I will invite Sandy Lynn. She deals
Hi,
with
Sandy.
the data requests. I can't tell you if we've charged anyone. I don't think we have this last year, but she might have more information.
Yeah, we have charged in the past, and we are limited by laws to what we can charge. Of course, if they ask just to inspect documents and not printed, that is, we cannot bill for that. We can bill for time for our technicians and our, technology folks to pull data, because that takes time and organize it and such, but you can't charge for like redacting or reviewing. You can only charge certain things by state statute.
And is there any limit as to how much can be pulled?
No, but they're, a reasonable, I try to have a reasonable approach, just asking, can we limit this in some way?
Right.
Or this is gonna take so long, and if you shorten it up, it won't take so long. Those kinds of things is more of a conversation with the person, or emailing back and forth if I don't know who the person is.
Okay. No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, where was I? Kim?
No, that was it for
Am I
me.
going the other way? I think we're
fine.
okay.
You're fine.
All right. 722, public data request forms. This is a form used to file a request for public data. It matches the MSBA language and no changes are proposed. Questions or clarifications on 722F? Kim?
No.
Mark?
No.
Jean?
No.
Denny?
No.
806, Crisis Management Plan. The purpose of this policy is to act as a guide for school district, building, and advise administrators, school employees, schools, school board members, and community members to address a wide range of potential crisis situations in the school district. This policy is mandatory and is reviewed annually. There are some minor language changes being proposed. Questions or clarifications on 806? Denny?
None.
Jean?
No.
Mark?
No.
Kim?
No.
That's it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, that was the first reading of policies, so we are on to referendum discussion. Is that you, Andy?
Good evening. You have seen this presentation several times. Tonight is our opportunity to recap that and then have a discussion about potential next steps with regards to the referendum and a potential referendum at some point in the future. So I will go through this as we have talked about this at study sessions, I think, for the last several months. You can see in April, we did a review of our voter data, an analysis. We talked a little bit. We did a hot wash, if you will, of the Proud Tradition Promising Future campaign. We did that right after the election, or right after, but into the fall and November and December. We came to you with some options as a starting point for the discussion, not that it controls the discussion, but a starting point. Over the last couple of months, we've had the preliminary 24-25 budget. You'll act on that again tonight, I hope. And then again, final discussion, we said from the very beginning, was June, July, and so we're here to not necessarily complete the discussion, but advance the discussion with the information that we have at this given time. So, as you have seen, the results of our poll. And we've reached out to, after the referendum, the disappointment of the referendum, I reached out to many, many people, superintendents, strategists, different people. We even consulted with the Morris Leatherman group about doing an after-action report, but we had shown them what our Samantha had done with the data, and they said they weren't going to give us any more information than how well she had scrubbed. So that's a compliment to her. But you can see of all the registered voters, we had about 35.5% of people vote in the election, 4,906 votes, 2,435 were yes, and then 2,417 were no for that very short margin. We had 1,155 early votes that happened throughout the fall. That was one of our strategies. We think that is an important strategy to us going forward. More to come on that. And then the disappointing piece, though we ran what I thought was an effective information and advocacy campaign, we only had 39% of our families who participated in this election this fall. We had 78% of staff, both licensed and non-licensed, who were eligible to vote. voted, but again, that 39% of our families participated in the election this fall, despite our efforts to get information to our families and get families to the polls. You've seen this before, so I won't go through this, but this is just information that we will use at some point, if that is the will of the board going forward, to say, of these 7 precincts that we have, or the 6 precincts, excuse me, what was the turnout, what was the percentage for? And again, I think this is a very interesting slide when you think of the fall of '23, which is on the left-hand side, or my left-hand side, and the fall of '22, both failed elections, but you'll see, though the number of voters was different, the percentage coming from each of those precincts was exactly the same, which tells us where we will put energies going forward, right? Again, you can see that here's our total number of our our families who voted. 61%, or 2,239, did not partake in the election. 39%, or 1,417, did. And here is the staff detail, and there's about 8% who weren't registered to vote. So these are people who live in the communities who were eligible to vote in this election. So we said from this information, though there was disappointing, and there's much, much more information that Samantha helped us glean from that data, and I can get that to you. But our question all along was, what opportunities come from the Proud Tradition and Promising Future campaign? We want to look at this as a learning opportunity. I certainly did. And so we came back and we said, these are 7 themes. They're not scientific, but these are 7 things that we would want to remember, that I would want to remember if asked or charged to lead a referendum campaign at some point. So you can see that emphasis on early voting. That was important to us, though it was a tremendous amount of work for Janelle and the Human Resources Department. It was one of the things that we thought was the most successful from unfortunately our failed campaign. We would want to continue with not only an information campaign, but a strong advocacy campaign. I still believe we had a very strong advocacy campaign. 25 people showed up for our last meeting, and we had weekly meetings throughout the campaign. And there were staff, there were parents, there were people who weren't actively engaged in the school district, who all were coming to those advocacy campaigns and asking what else they could do to help us sell the Proud Tradition Promising Future referendum campaign. We would want to think about enhancing evening and community events. That's something that we found successful. As you remember, I think we had 2 events where we had voting that went into the evening, and we had really good turnout on those 2 nights. So could it be done more often? Could it be done attached to some sort of community event? Our promotional materials at times got a little wordy, recognizing that we were trying to get a lot of information out, but could we use more visuals, less words, and target specific audiences? We even talked about with you all doing a survey in advance, and that might be something we want to do just to see if our parents were with us, if they were going to support this. It would not only alert them that we were potentially going for a campaign, but would also give us an opportunity to identify additional people to be involved with the advocacy group, or tell us what some of our blind spots might be as well. It does cost money, and so there's human resources, there's financial resources that go into creating a campaign. So we would want to identify what that would be going forward. And then again, we would want to make sure that our staff, though our staff really did turn out, but we would want to ensure that continues, because we had close to 80% of staff participating. So these were those 6 options that I said to you were not the only options, but they certainly were a starting point, and they obviously need a lot of detail. We don't know, as we talked about in 2 weeks ago, don't know what the number would be. Karen asked a really good question about, would this be a maintenance request or would this be something more? We don't know that yet, but minimally, we'd have to start with a maintenance request first, rather than going big, if you will. You'd want to start with a maintenance request to keep the lights on, to pay salaries. You could make a decision to do more, and that would either be in one question, or then you have to decide if it would be 2 questions or not, right? So we have an option, and what I'm going to ask you to consider tonight is the fall of 2024 and whether or not that's viable. We also know that we could do an operating referendum and a capital projects. We know that safety and security is something that other districts have done. You have explored technology before, I believe I get my falls wrong, but the fall of '22 as an option, knowing that you don't have a funding stream for technology. It's coming out of the operating referendum. You could do capital projects in the spring of 2025. You could wait until the fall of '25 and do an operating referendum, or in the fall of '25, you could do operating and capital projects. Again, that's just a starting point that we use for the conversation. I'm going to pause for just a second to see if anybody has any questions. Sure. So instead of using lots of words, we came up with this. Green means go, yellow means caution, and red means stop. In subsequent slides, I'll give a little bit more information to this. So on the left-hand side, you can see what those options are, 6 of them, or a combination that developed. And on the top, we talk about those 7 strategies that we thought were really important, going all the way from early voting to the budget. And we believe that if we did a better job with community and evening events, the info and advocacy, the community and evening events, the promotional materials, that we would increase staff who are registered, family participation, and even preschool family participation. We did a lot with our preschool families, but we think if we did an even better job, we can raise those participant levels up. So that is the visual that we used. Again, more detail to come on this. Over the last couple months, I have spent a considerable amount of time talking to anybody about referendums who will talk to me about them, superintendents of comparable districts, past superintendents. What I've found, it's very hard to compare and contrast school districts. Yes, we may have a similar demographic and a like size, but everybody has a different story in terms of their referendums. Do they have a referendum? Have they taken the legislative waiver to renew that referendum? Have they not? Where are they at in terms of their tax base, so on and so forth? I also take away from those conversations it's important to prioritize operating over capital projects, though I do think this will come out in our facilities study that is currently underway that will have some areas that need to be addressed. By and by, we should prioritize operating over capital projects first and foremost. Again, I've said this since I've started, communication and engagement. First, identify what is working and then sell that, and then try to find ways to enhance that communication as much as we possibly can going forward. And we chose to with the proud tradition, promising future, we made a decision to do our best to not make it feel like we were putting people into a corner and saying, if you don't do this, we will do this. It usually doesn't turn out very well when people feel threatened if they're on the fence. And so we weren't as direct, and that was an intentional by choice. I think that was still the right approach. We now, I think, couldn't become even more direct because this would be, at whatever time, would be our 3rd request asking voters. And I think it's pretty clear that the need is there. We've cut $6.1 million, 14% of our operating budget over the last 2 years. So we have the opportunity to be more direct. Another thing that I think we need to take into consideration is just the busy nature of a presidential election. People use the term drop-off, and it will be hard to get our message into the community. So I think about this from the perspective of 20% of our families are 20% of our population is actively engaged in our schools. It's a general number, but that's a general rule of thumb. We need to get our message to 80% of the families in what is going to be a pretty highly contested political season. And so the term that I have come to use is drop off. It will be hard. There would be a challenge to get our messages into the community, into that 80% who maybe aren't actively engaged in education and wouldn't be receiving communication from the schools via the backpack, or we don't do backpack communication anymore, but through text messages, all those different things. In an even year, you would be about communication, communication, communication. In an odd year, it would be about communication and engagement. And so we have to take into consideration just what the factors that are going to be taking place this fall. Sandy did a nice job, and we'll reshare, and we'll be sharing more detail about the budget. So I won't go through this in great detail. The mild winter has helped us in terms of allowing us to lessen some of those expenses. We still have need for concerns, though we did do a lot to right-size our budget. With enrollment, and we're watching enrollment very closely, we still may have to if we do nothing, we still may have to do some sort of budget reduction next year. A lot of that would be dependent on where our enrollment lands in the fall. And you can see those projections. We've said about 2 million is a number that we've said a ballpark number that can and most likely would fluctuate. And you can see some of those factors that we would take into consideration would have an impact on that $2 million. Questions about that? So here's just a little bit more detail about in words, in addition to the visual, about using that visual, again, those 6 factors and all of the different attributes or different strategies that we would want to put in place, from early voting to getting staff registered. And we think that if we did a better job, like again in those middle areas, myself included, starting with me, that we could increase family participation and even preschool family participation. The only red, which means stop, that in this very non-scientific visual that was created, is that it would be very hard to communicate anything capital projects wise, new information that we glean from a facility study, to understand that, to make sense of that, and then communicate that out to our families in the fall in what is going to be a pretty noisy, if you will, quote unquote, season. So that would be the only stopping point, but you can see there's a lot of yellow and there are some greens as well. With that, at our last meeting when we came together, there was a general comment about how do we get our families to participate in the election. And I took away 2 strategies that I shared with you in a follow-up message. Again, emphasis on communication, and when possible, accentuating that positive from both the site and district-wide. It's been a goal of mine since I was fortunate enough to take over. I think we've made some inroads. I think we can do even more in terms of communication. And then if we think of engagement and engaging multiple perspectives in order to unify the community, making sure that we're hearing voices of people who have traditionally been very supportive, but also doing a better job, again, starting with me, of trying to find ways to engage people who maybe haven't always been supportive or on the fence or have questions or concerns about what is happening in the school district. So those 2 strategies, simply of communication and engagement, help us, I would hope, to better persuade our families to get to those polls, and hopefully if they get to the polls, they would vote in favor of our request. And then obviously a lot of this depends on what is that request. And again, I think it's fair to say that minimally we would ask for a maintenance request. I don't know if I would advise at this point going more than a maintenance request, especially with the first question. I think you would have to be adding multiple questions because, again, we need money coming into the operating budget for salaries and benefits, to keep the lights on, to not have to continue the cycle of budget reductions that we have been in. With that, I'll pause for just a second. So again, those are those 6 options, and now it's your opportunity to weigh in. Is the school district positioned and prepared for a fall 2024 referendum campaign? I would say that this is a lot of work. It's not work that we are afraid of doing. It's the right work, and so if you said go, we would be ready to do it. So prepared maybe isn't the right word, but position maybe is a better word. Knowing the information that you know and the conversations that we've had leading up to this, the question on the table is not are we going to do a referendum, yes or no, right? But first and foremost, we really need to make a decision about the fall of '24, and if we're positioned to go out and ask voters for an investment in the school district this fall. So I'll open that up for questions or comments from you all.
I personally don't want to share our success or failure with the presidential election year. I think this is the most important thing to our local school district right here and now, and to have that be influenced one way or the other by the presidential election is something that I just do not have the stomach for. I think this is a standalone, important issue, and it deserves its own attention rather than to share the stage with the national stage.
Thank you for that. Others?
I agree with that. I just think that the fall of 2024, even though it seems like it's farther away, I think it would be quick in terms of being prepared to do what we want to do and to get people to communicate and be engaged and understand. And I think if we rush it, we're going to have the scenario we already had.
I think I agree with both of them. I do want to emphasize the idea of the noise during a national election would drown out the specific things that we need to get across to our communities. Is that if we aren't communicating our position well, if we're not communicating our ask well, or even if we are, the outside noise might drown that out. And that worries me, because if our biggest thing is communication and engaging people, and we're going to start from a place of being under the gun right away because it's a national election, I would say it's probably not the best time.
I agree. And your advice proves it as well. That they said
From
not to
the
contend.
people that I've talked, yeah.
Yeah.
Not my advice personally, but my informed,
Right.
yes.
Yes.
Again, I want to be very clear. We would be prepared. We would make this work. We would make a very good campaign. I'm still very proud of the proud tradition, promising future. I wouldn't have changed a lot on how we did business. I would have wanted a little bit more runway. And again, that starts with me. But I think it would be very hard, and it would be a challenge to communicate our message out. When you think of that 80-20 split, 80% of the population has no affiliation. So how are we getting messages to them when it's going to be, to use Karen's word, a noisy political season?
I agree with everything they said, and I think it's still critical that we educate people better on what this election actually is, because I think there's a segment of the population that's very anti-tax because they feel money is getting wasted in other areas of the country, state, and this has nothing to do with that. This referendum only involves things in our district
Sure.
and our people, and I think we got to continue to hammer that home, because there's such a big disparity in all the propaganda you see on TV and internet about elections and wasted money, and this is so different. And I don't think people connect those dots at all, the difference that there really is, and the impact that it has on the town, and heck, the 4 towns that are here, New Prague, Lonsdale, and Elko, New Market.
I think that's a really good point. It's that fine line between informing people of that and not making it feel like it's threatening. I still would be very hesitant to have a threatening campaign. I know that's some feedback we've gotten. It just doesn't bode well usually when you ask people who are on the fence. But I do think we could be more direct and do a better job of quantifying what the experience is. So I'm not seeing, I would skip over 2 then, unless anybody has any questions. And so what I would propose then as a next step is that in work sessions and study sessions, even this fall, bringing to you a plan and a timeline to have a discussion about what would be the next option you would want to consider of those 5, knowing that still do nothing is an option. But right now, tonight, just for the finality of just the fall of '24, we're going to take that, and even, I guess, 2 and 3 off of our list, and then think about capital projects, operating referendum, all be either, whether it be the spring or fall of '25. Is that fair?
When will the facility study be done?
The facility study is underway. We will have some information, but then we want to do some engagement of our staff and our community with the facility study. So I can bring that information to you. It will go into the fall.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons
Yeah,
why
that's what I was thinking too.
that red was there, because it would feel really, really rushed, and I don't think we would be able to, if you will, consume the information as to then share it
Okay.
internally and externally. So
Yep.
it will go into the fall and into the winter, but I'll get that information to
Okay,
you.
thanks.
So with that, we'll continue to have, probably not every month, but discussions at study sessions, and I will bring to you some options later on this fall to consider about referendum next steps, which again could be a combination, but I will start the conversation with now 1, 4, 5, and 6 going forward. Fair?
Yes.
One other thing too that this will give us an opportunity to see is how our district functions for another year under the budget that we have coming up. If we were to do something before that, we wouldn't have that luxury of seeing what another school year will present to us as far as needs and how we're functioning. So I think we'll learn something from that year as well.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you for that.
That, as well as community and school response, will be likely helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I trust that our staff, our principals, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, everyone in our buildings will do the best and will produce great things, but there will be some changes.
Yeah.
And so the response from them, I have no concerns over, but it will be what it means to our families. Class sizes will go up. We know that there will be less transportation because of the changes to transportation, and those aren't anything that we want to do. It was never a threat before. It's not a threat now, but it will be the reaction of the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to action items, and Sandy, I'm sure, will come and inform us about the second
I'm
reading.
certainly happy to get up from this chair and turn it over to Sandy.
About the second reading and approval of the 2024-25 budget.
I'm just going to go through this on the PDF. We were having a hard time getting the PowerPoint to work, so I'm just going to go through it on the PDF. Basically, the first thing I want to say is there are no changes to either the projected actual or the 24-25 preliminary budget in the general fund from when I presented it in May. I will go over it briefly just for the public, and there's a complete presentation then when we approve the final budget, but there are no major change, no changes at all. So for 23-24, the unassigned fund balance, I'm still projecting that it will be 8.9% or almost $4 million. I won't go through all the detail here. The public can certainly see that. We are anticipating a loss of enrollment again, but that will show itself in the fall. Yeah, actually, loss of enrollment was this year, and so we went down about almost $200,000 this year. We had some areas that we were able to save money, we did implement additional chargebacks in 23-24. We had some open positions. We also paid an early retirement incentive payment of $128,000, which is included in this projected actual, and we'll have a small cushion, hopefully going into 24-25. In 24-25, then the unassigned fund balance, I would project that to be 9.4% or $4.32 million. We are going to be seeing a slight decrease in revenue. just because of enrollment. Basically, that's the first factor. The second factor is that one-time payment from our workers' comp carrier of $292,000 that was very much welcomed and showed how well we handle our workers' comp claims, but it will not be repeated in 24-25. And expenses, we just have the data from our settled contracts. I have a $250,000 contingency as we did in 23-24, and it does incorporate that $3.25 million in budget adjustments that you approved in March. I don't know if I have to go through this again. These are our projects for next year. Most of them are LTFM project. We do have a capital project of a district-wide firewall for $60,000. And the Falcon Ridge casework project that we're doing right now, I'll be going over that when I cover the LTFM plan, which is the next agenda item. This shows the general fund assigned and unassigned and total fund balance, a brief history, and then you can see it increasing in 24-25, actually 23-24 and 24-25, and it is higher than that 8% goal. These are the key general fund reserve accounts. The one that is negative there, that's LTFM, and LTFM is going to go negative initially. We can go negative in that fund balance as long as we show us coming out of it, and you'll see that again when I cover the 10-year facilities maintenance plan. Operating capital, we had planned for a decline this year, and we should stay about stable for next year. Gifted and talented is going to grow a little bit, and we need to, I've talked with Maren about finding ways to utilize those funds. Safe schools, we're probably going to spend down to zero. We have upgraded all of our cameras and everything. We're using those funds to pay mainly for our SRO and for our some of our school staff that work with kids for safety reasons. And then I show that literacy aid as well that we're going to be getting next year. So those are the main general fund reserve accounts. Now on to 2 and 4, which I did not present last time. So the detail for the Fund 2 and Fund 4 were in the budget report. And for Fund 2, we are going to be increasing our fund balance this year by $655,000. And that is, we have the free school meals this year, and that reimbursement rate is very high. We also saw a big increase during COVID when we had free meals. And next year, it will also increase, not quite as much, but it will also increase. And then Fund 4, we are going to be staying fairly stable. We may go into a little bit of a negative at the end of 24-25, but there's lots of things that it's hard to take into account for, what am I trying to say, fee-based services. And so we'll know a lot again this fall, and we'll do a revised budget in December. I didn't talk about Fund 7, that is on the budget report, of course. Fund 7 is our debt service, and that is designed to self-maintain. We levy 105% of our bond payments every year, and then every year they do that debt excess debt reduction on our levy. And we also, receive considerable investment earnings attributed to Fund 7. But that's self-regulating, so it kind of goes up a little bit, then it goes down a little bit, but it stays pretty stable overall. Next steps for the budget would be September we'll have updated enrollment. Right now we're still showing fairly low kindergarten numbers, lower than what we anticipated. We have the audit results in October. December we do the final budget for fiscal year 24-25. There's still a lot of staffing changes we haven't taken into account. People leave and we hire new people at less, lower on the salary schedule. There's all kinds of things that happen between now and when school starts. And then we have new financial projections in January that would be presented. So any questions on the budget? Maybe I should have stopped more frequently to ask for questions. Not approving it would be the next. Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2024-25 budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. My second agenda item is the 10-year facility maintenance plan. We are required to do a 10-year plan every June/July in preparation for the levy that we start working with in September. And we have to have an approved plan by MDE. And this is the one we'll pass the resolution. I think, Denny, you have the resolution?
Have it?
And I'd like to explain a couple things too, but do you want to go ahead and read the resolution first, or should I?
Why don't you explain it? That way it'll be more meaningful, I think, to have the resolution.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the health and, excuse me, the health and safety part is, on the top of the expenditure plan, that's pretty, repetitive. There are certain things we do every year with playground equipment and all the testing that we're required to do. What really can vary a lot is the deferred maintenance type projects that we have. And in this year, 23-24 and 24-25, we have the Falcon Ridge case work replacement project. Part of it is done this year, part of it is done next year because we have the June 30th cutoff date. And so that will be done by the end of the summer. Then we've also put into the plan LED lighting in, I think the only place we have LED lighting fully is the middle school and here. And so we still have 3 elementaries and the high school. And so working with Craig, we've spread that out over 3 years from 25-26 to 27-28, and kind of one building each year.
If I may, those were conversations that sprang out of our planning for success process about how can we decrease expenses, increase revenue, and so there's obviously an expense that goes into this, but we believe it'll lower our costs going forward. So that was the plan, and again, that was Mr. Most's idea coming out of planning for success. So trying to be as proactive as we can.
So those are in the next 3 fiscal years, and then the big one is 28-29. Craig and I have tagged that to be the turf replacement, artificial turf at Trojan Stadium. Craig has informed me that they test it every year. There's really been no decrease in performance at all. It is worn extremely well. We just put it in that 28-29, knowing that's probably the first year that we may consider replacing that turf. It's a very big project. We may even decide to sell bonds for it, but we'll decide that at the time. It depends upon how much of a fund balance we have built up. But all of our roofs are taken care of, so we've got a lot of the big projects done, and that turf is out there. But if I were a betting person, I think I would move that out even a couple of years, but we just have to wait and see how it wears. So there's the revenue piece and the expenditure piece attached in board docs. Yep.
Questions for Sandy? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to consider the resolution approving the 10-year facility plan for long-term facilities maintenance review revenue program.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. Whereas the Minnesota Legislature passed legislation affecting school district revenue for long-term facilities maintenance, whereas the Minnesota Department of Education has determined that to access long-term facilities maintenance revenue, school districts must approve a 10-year facility plan. Whereas that 10-year facility plan must be updated and approved annually and reported to the Minnesota Department of Education every year. The New Prague Area School Board has reviewed the long-term facilities maintenance revenue program and has reviewed the school district's 10-year facilities plan. Now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 721 that the 25-34 10-year facility plan be approved for submission to the Minnesota Department of Education. How do you vote on this, Karen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 5-0. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
All right, item 11.3, resolution to commit funds for future severance and other post-employment benefit payments. I bet involves you again, Sandy.
It does, yes. And this is a resolution we pass every year. It does say, severance and other post-employment benefits, and this is mainly for severance. We still have severance that has been sunset in several of our contracts, and so this is just to put a little bit of money aside. The big severance payments came when the grandfather teachers retired several years ago. We don't have many, but we still have it in principals. Techs and a couple of food service employees still have it, so we just try to set aside a little bit of money for that. So I'm saying we didn't make any payments in 23-24 because we didn't pay any severance in 23-24 because that's really what this is set aside for. And so just asking for your approval to commit those funds.
Any questions for Sandy? Okay, I will entertain a motion to consider the resolution to commit funds for future severance and other post-employment benefit payments.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to have it be resolved by the New Prague Area School Board of Education that New Prague Area Schools will commit a portion of the unassigned general fund balance to account for future severance and other post-employment benefit liability to enable better planning for future payments. As it desires, the school board can adjust the amount of money committed for these purposes within the general fund balance. The Board of Education has committed $78,182 in the general fund for 22-23. New Prague Area School expects to pay zero amount for post-employment payments during 23-24. Therefore, the amount of general fund committed at the end of the 23-24 year will remain at $78,182. How do you vote on this resolution, Kim?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Yes. I've been
Jean.
called worse.
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 5-0.
Okay, with that, we are on to the 24-25 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
Yes, and this is one that we do every year. The Minnesota State High School League is an organization that we belong to that supports and maintains school programs in the interscholastic areas, athletics, and other areas that allow students to participate in these programs. And it takes a resolution to allow us to be participants in this organization. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution: that the governing board of entity New Prague School District, bylaws, policies, rules, and regulations of our said league, and all amendments hereto as the same are published in the latest edition of the league's official handbook on file at the office of the school district, or as appears on the league's website, as the minimum standards governing participation in the said league-sponsored activities, athletics. Further, the administration has responsibility for determining student eligibility and for the supervision of such activities and athletics as assigned to the official representatives identified by this governing board. Signing this resolution for membership affirms that this governing board, our school district board, has reviewed all the required membership materials provided by the league, which defines the purpose and value of education-based activity and athletic programs and defines each member district's responsibilities. How do you vote on this, Karen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 5-0.
Okay, item 11.5, resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy for, I assume this is for school board, yeah.
For the coming school
Election.
board election in the fall. That's correct. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider the resolution establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 721, the period for filing affidavits of candidacy for the office of School Board Member of Independent School District 721 shall begin on Tuesday, July 30th, 2024, and shall close on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. An affidavit of candidacy must be filed in the office of the school district clerk, and the $2 filing fee paid for prior to the 5 p.m. time on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of said filing dates to be published in the official newspaper of the district at least 2 weeks prior to the first day to file affidavits of candidacy. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of said filing dates to be posted at the administrative offices of the school district at least 10 days prior to the first day of the filing of affidavits of candidacy. The notice of the said filing dates shall be substantially as read. How do you vote on this? Kim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 5-0.
All right, then we're on to 11.6, resolution establishing refined hand count procedures for school board elections.
It's the Denny Show tonight.
It is, and this is kind of a really sensible resolution, because for years, people have been putting write-ins for Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and things like this, and wasting people's time because they have to document it, and they have to count it, and then publish it, and whatever have you. This eliminates that by requiring a certain set number of votes that a person has to have as a write-in to be counted. So that's just a little quick summary of that. It's a good rule. At this time, I'll consider a resolution establishing the refined hand count procedures for school board elections.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded considering the following resolution. Whereas state election law generally requires the counting and tabulation of each write-in vote for school board elections, and whereas the process of counting write-in votes on election night can be time-consuming and frequently does not produce a winning candidate, and whereas the school board is authorized by Minnesota statutes, specifically Minnesota laws, to adopt a resolution governing the counting of write-in votes for local elective office, and whereas the resolution adopted by the school board may require that write-in votes for an individual candidate can only be individually recorded if the total number of write-in votes for that office is equal to or greater than the fewest number of non-write-in votes for a ballot candidate. Whereas the school board desires to lessen the administrative burden on election workers by establishing a refined hand count procedure for school board elections. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the School Board of Independent School District to pass this resolution for the purpose of that we just stated. How do you vote on this, Karen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 5-0.
If I may, and we checked with the city before we brought this to you, and they have passed a similar resolution that they will utilize going forward. So we're not alone in this. It seems like it's a pretty common sense, as Denny talked about, a resolution to, just for the efficiencies of the counting of ballots. So the city will be doing something very similar, is my understanding.
Okay. Dennis, I think your night is over. You get to vote now. Now we're on to the approval of memorandum of understanding with the Media Center Supervisor for 2023-24, and I'm sure Sandy's going to have
Sandy's back.
Sorry, 23-25. You are correct, Kim.
Right, I think both of 11.7 and 11.8, they are not included, excuse me, with the regular Band C employees. The Media Center Supervisor because it's not year-round, and the other one because it's pretty part-time. And so we bring these separate. They basically receive the same salary increase other non-certified groups received, the same insurance contribution increase, and added Juneteenth if they're working during the summer, which one of those employees is.
Okay, so we need a motion and to vote on each one separately, I assume. Okay. With that, I'll look for a motion from someone.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the media center supervisor for 23-25.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the memorandum of understanding for the media center supervisor for 23-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the fitness center coordinator for 23-25.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the memorandum of understanding with the fitness center coordinator for 2023-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I can't remember what to say. All those opposing.
There you go.
Same sign. Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve the Band C terms and conditions of employment for 23-25.
Want me to make a
Do we-
comment?
Yeah, are we gonna,
Are you,
Better?
I'll
Do you want-
second the motion.
There we go.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Band C terms and conditions of employment for 23-25. Sandy, was there something that you wanted to add about this?
I just want to say that it's, Band C was handled similar to the other non-certified groups. Same increases insurance and very similar salary increases and Juneteenth.
All right, with that, all those in favor of approving the Band C terms and conditions of employment for 23-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion. Can I do that?
Can do that.
Okay.
anything on
Approve-
Band D?
Yeah, the approval of Band D terms and conditions for employment for 23 through 25.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve for the approval of Band D terms and conditions of employment for 2023-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Do you have anything to add about the last one, Sandy?
Excuse me, except to say that, salaries for these folks in Band E were frozen for 23, 24, and they will receive similar increases in insurance and salary as the principal bargaining group did.
All right, with that, could I have a motion to approve the Band E terms and conditions of employment for 23-25?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the approval of Band E terms and conditions of employment for 2023-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.